the American forces had advanced so fast that they had to wait for supplies and ammunition to catch up with them. They had some supplies, I don't mean that, some ammunition, but they had to have a big build-up again before they could go on. And then, so we stayed in, I don't know how long we were in Luxembourg, but we took over a hospital there in Luxembourg. It wasn't a very big hospital, and you couldn't really tell that it was a hospital when we got to it. But the story that was told on it, which I guess is true, was it was one of Hitler's hospitals for unwed women. That's where he was trying to build his master race. The girls were pregnant by some of the super SS men of the German, and he was trying to build his race. And they would go there to that hospital. That's where they would have their babies. But in Luxembourg, most of the people spoke English. And they said that was because it was occupied in World War I by some American division or two then, and they learned to speak English back then, and it carried on over. And we're still speaking good English, and so we could talk to them very easily. And I remember they had ice cream there, which we hadn't had anything like ice cream in I don't know when. And we roamed around there in Luxembourg fairly freely. You didn't have to worry. It wasn't like being, it was almost like being on furlough. And then...
Was that where you met the girl, the young lady?
No.
Some places spent quite a bit of time talking to a young lady.
Oh, I don't know what that was. That was later.
Oh.
We...
Well, go ahead.
Well, from there, they moved us back into the line, and we moved on into Germany, into the, there's places that I'm missing through here where we moved to, but main places. We moved into what they call the Hirchen Forest in Germany, and it was there we were back into real combat again. And it was getting cold. The first night we were in that forest, we just laid down, made us a pack someplace on the ground. And one reason I can remember this first night there is when I woke up the next morning, there'd been some shelling going on around there. Well, right there by that tree where I was, a great big hunk taken out of it. So if I'd known that, I'd have tucked down a little bit closer to the ground.
The water didn't wake you up that close.
Well, it probably did. You didn't sleep very tight, but you got used to not sleeping over there. You could sleep. You'd cat nap all the time.
Oh.
But we were in the Hirchen Forest, and well, wait a minute. Before that, before we left Luxembourg, was Thanksgiving, and we drew straws, or some kind of a lottery thing, and I was lucky. I got to go back to Paris for Thanksgiving.
How about that?
That was our first furlough, I guess you'd say, or pass we got. And everybody out of the division, certain ones won. And we went back to Paris and got into they bedded us down at the Grand Hotel in Paris. And boy, we thought we were going to live it up. And that we got to eat in the hotel, but you know what we had? We had GI rashes. And up on the front line where up towards where the combat soldiers were, they had turkey and dressing where I just left. They had turkey and dressing and crap.
Oh, wow.
Looks like they could have done better than that, doesn't it?
Yeah. But we went, while I was there, that's when I went back to, I went up the Eiffel Tower, which if you go up just so high, you couldn't go to the top of it then, but if you go way up, you were really pretty high. And then during the war, they said you couldn't even go up any of it. Germans had Paris, and they said that they couldn't operate those elevators on it. But anyway, I went up the Eiffel Tower, and then they had a tour if you wanted to go back to the Palace of Versailles, where well, we went to the Palace
You
of
were
Versailles.
there,
Yeah,
We did possibly.
yeah, I went
that's
back
right.
to the Palace of Versailles, and a few places like that. That's. I think we were there about 3 days, and then we went back. And then after that, we went on into back into we were considered in combat area where we were, but we were just sitting there waiting and for ammunition and everything to catch up with us. And we moved into I believe it was a Hirchen Forest that we went into next. And it turned bitter cold there. And I don't remember just how cold it was, but we were there. I can still remember right before we were right the Battle of the Bulge started while we were there in the Hirchen Forest in Germany. Battle of the Bulge back in Belgium. And they moved in some anti-aircraft guns right there by where we were in the Hirchen Forest. And it was kind of a valley. And I can still remember a German plane coming down through that valley. It was real low. And that the boys with the anti-aircraft just let one burst of shot fired, and they hit him. And down he went, just so maybe a half a mile further down the valley where he finally crashed. But boy, that was deadly shooting, because they didn't have hardly any time to know it was coming or to fire or anything. They just pushed that gun around and fired, and they got him.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive. Didn't have much radar back in those days.
Yeah. And I can tell you something, since I talked about that, I used to, especially one area, and I don't remember where in France we were at the time, but there was big dog fights right above us. We just stood there and
What's
stood
that?
there, airplanes,
Oh,
dog fights. And we watched them. And I saw one American plane shot down, and the pilot bailed out. He was all right. And then I saw that they finally had one German plane. I kind of felt sorry for him. There was about 3 or 4 ganged up on him. He didn't have a chance. And the Germans didn't have that many planes left by the time we got that far along in the war.
Yeah.
In the first place. Then anyway, from Hirchen Forest, we spent Christmas right close by where we had been camping. And the Christmas night, or Christmas Eve night, everybody was on the alert. And nobody was to be awake, was to be asleep under any conditions after about 3, because they were expecting a counterattack because it was Christmas. But that never did occur. And then the next day, Christmas Day, we spent there, and you never saw so many tanks going back in your life. I didn't know there were that many tanks in Germany that passed right in front of, down the road right there by us, going back into Belgium where the Battle of Bulge was. And we stayed there, I think, until the next day, and then we started moving back. And we moved back into the Battle of Bulge. And when we left, there was no snow, but when we got, after we moved into a town called Liège, Belgium, I remember spending the night there, and there was no snow. But before we were there very long, there was deep snow, lots of deep snow. The story was the tanks couldn't even move. The snow was so deep in lots of areas.
We had to sleep in that
And
too.
the infantry people were the ones that, the only ones that could really move about there for a week or two because of the cold and the deep snow. And I can still remember we staying in a barn one night, and we covered up with hay, and they said that the temperature was 36 below. Whether that was true or not. But it was cold, and you
My
couldn't build,
God.
you couldn't build a fire or anything like that because it was sure where you were.
Yeah.
But we covered up with hay and everything else you could. That's it was in places like that's where you got cooties too. And we used a lot of that powder that's supposed to kill bugs on you. Because we had to sleep in such rough, terrible conditions. From the Battle of the Bulge, then we started moving up towards the Rhine River, and we passed another river, Roar River, I think, first, then the Rhine River.
Did you get anything
I
that?
remember we built those pontoon bridges across, salt bridges across those, and I remember the 83rd Division boys made reconnaissance trips way ahead of the infantry on the Roar River and the Rhine River both. They floated over at night in little boats they had, and floated and made reconnaissance trips over on the other side of the river. And they built these bridges for these tanks and trucks and so on to go over. And they built one bridge that got, and they named it after President Truman. It was called the Truman Bridge, and I think there's a picture that's in here somewhere of it. Where it was built by the 83rd. But we went on, and after they crossed the Rhine, that was getting close to the end of the war. And from there, let's see, they call it, we got the newspapers over here that Mom saved or told us about, call it the Ragtag Division. We were going so fast. By the way, we were, part of the time we were in the First Army. When we first landed in Normandy, we were in the First Army under General Bradley. And then in France, we went under General Patton.
That's the son of a bitch.
That's when we were.
There's a worse word than that, surely.
That's when we were down at New Orleans and went over to Luxembourg. Then when we went back into the line again, after Luxembourg, we were back into the First Army again. And then after that was, I guess Bradley still was commanding general of the First Army. Anyway, then we went, there at the last of the war, we went to what they called us after the crossing the Rhine. They called it the papers called it the Ragtag Division. We were going so fast towards Berlin that we were just passing troops up and leaving them for other people to people behind us to mop up.
Hmm.
And that was towards the end of the war. And then we got up and we crossed the, oh man, I can't think of the name of that river.
ROHR or something.
It's probably in here, in this book someplace. But anyway, we were the closest. We crossed that river, made a bridgehead over it, and stopped. And they stopped us, and we could have gone on into. We were going so fast, we could have gone on into Berlin. But they let the Russians take Berlin. We just sat there and waited on them. But we were the closest. They said the closest division to Berlin after the war. At the end of the war.
Okay.
And there was some other outfit that also got some credit. It was a tank outfit, I think, that crossed after, probably over our pontoon bridges to get there. And that, in a nutshell, is pretty much what you can go through here and probably get, through this book, probably get a lot of information out of it.
Okay.
But there's pictures here that
How much actual?
Elbe River is what it was,
Elbe.
L-B-E.
Yeah, LBE.
That's right here. And while we were there, we just sat there, just waiting for the Russians to take Berlin. And
Let me see it.
they were wishing, lots of the people were wishing that we had to go ahead and take them Berlin, because the Russians were mistreating the Germans so bad. We didn't do that. Not in general, we didn't. And they were mistreating them.
Empty pages.
They said a story where they were raping and everything else. And I think we could have taken Berlin easier. They would probably let us take Berlin. We could probably, the Germans would probably let us take it a lot, because they knew what was coming when the Russians. And we could have probably taken it easier than the Russians did.
Did you get into Berlin after the war? When the war was?
Yes, we did. When we left up there, we went back to I can't think of the Bad Harzburg, Germany, which was kind of a resort town. And it was a hospital town for the Germans in a lot of those places. But they had bathhouses there where you go in and take health baths and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And really it was, except when I was in Paris that short time, the only real bath I ever had from the time the invasion started till the war was over. Boy, when we got back at Harvard, they fired up the heat in those heaters and started eating those baths. I think I took about 3 baths a day there while we were there.
And you came out with some swords too, those dress swords. Where did you get those dress swords at?
We took a town, and I don't remember where it was, but there was a plant where they made a lot of that stuff. That one long, big sword that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I got it, it was a brand new sword that made them there. And we took that plant and we heisted a lot of those swords out of that place.
Picture of Warren Spahn. He's a veteran of Baseball Hall of Fame pitcher, veteran of World War II, points out in memorabilia at his broken arrow home. Where's the rest of the article?
Oh, yeah. He died just last week over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize he was a broken arrow type.
Yeah. He had a big ranch down at Fort Sumner, just 12, 15 miles east of.
Well, that's strange, not all of it's in here.
2,800 acres, so the
Yeah, here it is. It's at the
paper
top.
said.
Yeah.
it was still his.
Across the
when he
world,
died.
December the 11th, 94. I can, here's Battle of the Bulge picture.
The story was that while he was down there, he worked for for the Pittsburgh County Sheriff's Department there for a while.
Oh, yeah?
And he was also manager of the Tulsa baseball team, we called Tulsa Oilers back then when he was manager. And the paper said he had more wins while they had more wins while he was manager than they'd ever had until 1998, I believe it was. And they
Jack Surrender.
Now, you captured some guys too while you were there. You captured a couple of Germans yourself or something. didn't you?
Yeah, that was in Germany. And we were in some town there. And I don't know where, I can't tell you exactly, I can picture it in my mind what it looked like there. And I can picture in my mind exactly where I was when we found out that President Roosevelt was dead, but I couldn't tell you exactly where we were, what town it was. But that one, we had taken that town, and I was right at the edge of town, and there was a bunch of, what do you call them? There's a small hay, stacks of corn or stuff like that. And while I was standing there, I was looking out over it was some kind of grain field, whatever it was, shocks. There were a bunch of shocks of grain there. And I saw something move right around one of those shocks. So I heisted my gun and started hollering and told them to come out. They didn't. I walked a little closer to them. And they came out. And there's two German soldiers. They were hiding there. And I took them back into town. They wanted to pick up something out of them.
Written that in a
They
letter.
had hidden someplace over there. They said it was their clothes, and it was. And I kept a gun on them all that time. I picked that up and took it back in. And another fellow and I, we jumped into a Jeep there was an MP gathering place where they had soldiers, about a few miles from there. We took them back there, prisoners of war. One of them was changing into civilian clothes.
So you could have shot him and done away with it then.
Oh, yeah.
The spy.
Yeah.
Well, now you came out as an E7, is that right? You came out as
We call it a tech, I don't know what they are now, as a tech sergeant. I came out.
3 up and 2 below?
3 up and 2 below.
It's E7.
We had what we call a tech sergeant, and then they had a T sergeant, which was like a buck sergeant stripes with a T under it.
Huh.
Technical sergeant, I guess you'd call it. Well, no, I don't know what they call it. It was a T sergeant, what we call them.
I never heard of that before.
I don't guess they hadn't that. I was a T sergeant for a while. And
You
then
look
got
so
promoted to tech
different.
sergeant.
How'd you make
I
it
was
up
a
the
corporal
ranks?
for a long time.
How'd you make it up the ranks so quick?
I didn't make it up quick. I made corporal, and I don't really, I thought I was I just can't remember when I got to be a T sergeant. And I was thinking it was at Camp Breckenridge when I was a T sergeant.
So you're still in
And
the
I had
States?
to wait a long time for that. I was eligible for it, and they said they had too many T sergeants. And
This is
and
on the
the
Danube.
division had to approve your promotion in the battalion.
This is on the Danube, and there's some good-looking young gals there.
And then when I was when I made tech sergeant, that was towards the end of the war. And Colonel Dodge, the job was open. And I had been doing that work for a while, and I'd been doing the T sergeant work for quite a while before I ever got promoted, because that was, and Colonel Dodge promoted me to tech sergeant. And he got the thing back, said that he couldn't do that, that there's too many tech sergeants in the division. And so they said, so one of the fellows that worked over there with Colonel Dodd said, he just called him up and says, "You're too late. I've already promoted him." Said, "I'm tired of this." And he got, and I got the promotion anyway.
Yeah. So you were a sergeant, you hit France then?
I think so, but I can't swear to that. I'd have to, I've got an old book someplace in storage that's got all that in it, and I think I was, but I just can't remember now. But I know I didn't get that tech sergeant's job until about the end of the war.
Yeah. That's still not bad though. I mean, I was in for 3 years and just made corporal, spec 4. But I guess you make it faster in wartime than you do in non-wartime.
Oh yeah, you had them killed off back in wartime.
Now, how many men in your unit did you actually lose? Do you have any idea? In your company or?
We've got it. I've got it in a book. Well, I've got a history of the 83rd Infantry Division, and you can count them. It shows who was killed, and I could count them that way, or by saying who was in the 308th Combat Engineers. And then there's something else that I've got somewhere that's about 308th, and it also tells, which compared to the infantry, we didn't lose that many. We lost probably 20, 30, something like that out of a battalion.
That's not too bad.
I had a real good friend. That's there at Camp Breckenridge. I was in headquarters company. And he was in headquarters company, but he was there for some purposes, I don't know, he wasn't. Anyway, he was the closest friend I had that was lost over there. And he was transferred back to the Company C, I think it was, out of headquarters. And while he was in Company C, he was killed over there. And I had seen him just 2 or 3 days before, and he was telling me how well he liked it back in Company C. So it was kind of fun back there. And he said they got pinned down out in an open field and killed him and 2 or 3 others.
You killed your daddy. You wouldn't even hardly know him right there.
I wouldn't know.
Corporal.
And they had him, I can still remember.
Is there anything that we left out? Have you got anything? There are lots of pages in here.
Oh, I don't know, there's probably lots that's left out. There's lots that I've left out that I just can't remember a lot.
Well,
It would take
let's
forever
get it, start
give
digging
detail
in.
by detail for every move you made and all that. But I can still remember a lieutenant that was killed. And there were twin boys. And their name was, I'd have to look now, it was either McCall or McFall. And I knew them both and knew them pretty well. It's been too many years. And one of those boys was killed by a sniper. And they grabbed his twin brother up and sent him home.
Yeah. Can't imagine losing a son, or 2 or 3 sons.
Oh, there was one time there was 5 boys over there.
But there was a Camp McCall or a Camp McFall over in, I think it was in the Carolinas. And that camp was named after some of their uncles or father or somebody, those twin boys, I remember that. Somebody's kid, they were